Hey everybody, and welcome to an APA 7th edition Citations and References tutorial. I wanted to go ahead and do a tutorial on citations and references because I come across a lot of problems and small errors when it comes to APA-style citations and references, especially from students who maybe aren't familiar with writing an APA style or haven't written too many things in APA style. And this might be a good tutorial to use in a research methods class or a writing intensive class where APA style is used. And I'm going to go ahead and use the rules set forth in the 7th edition, which came out last fall 2019. That has some really important updates and really good flow streamline updates. And so the ideas that I want to talk about in this tutorial have to do with in-text citations for any number of authors, where to put the author, the comma, the date, etc. in both parenthetical citations and non-parenthetical or narrative-based in-text citation. So where the reference or the citation is part of the syntax of the sentence, right? The authors are the subjects of the sentence, for example. And then I also want to talk about some of the updates that were made to the references section. So, full references. I want to mention what should go in, what doesn't need to be there anymore, that sort of thing. I'm going to focus primarily on journal articles in this tutorial, and I'm going to be using Microsoft Word for this. You can see that I am using the Mac version of the most recent release. I believe it's Microsoft 26 or Office 2016, but it is the constantly updated version of it through Office 365, the subscription-based service that they have. And so I maximized the window here to make it as big as you want. I can also, I'm going to increase the size. This is at 125. I'm going to make it 150 or thereabouts. Oh, look at that. I got it there. And so you can see what I'm talking about. So the first thing I want to do is citations. Okay. No, I didn't spell that right. Citations. And what we're going to talk about first is how many authors. So citations. I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 next to this. It's going to auto make it a 1. I don't want it to be, I don't want auto numbering here, but I will bring in the tab there so you can see, so it's all in line, and then we'll do 2 for references. So I want to do 1 author to start us off with, okay? And I'm just going to use my last name because it's going to be easier, okay? So a parenthetical citation would be using parentheses. So if I am the only author on this, this is how it would look in a parenthetical. And let me go ahead and put it in a sentence, okay? So what did I do in 2020? I am making a tutorial for APA style, okay? And so before I end my sentence with a period, other things, I'm going to question mark, exclamation point, that sort of thing. I'm going to go ahead and insert this parenthetical citation, okay? I don't know why I can't spell my own name, okay? And then I close the parentheses and I put the period. So the parenthetical citation for 1 author, as well as just any parenthetical citation, is before the period. Okay, so it's technically a part of that sentence. Okay, now with 2 authors in a parenthetical, they are always written. Both names are always written. So I'm actually going to refer to a article that my colleague and collaborator Randy Stein did last year. So that's 2019. Okay. So parenthetical for Stein and Swan 2019, you can see that the major thing here is an ampersand, okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to do an in-text citation for that one, but what I'm going to show you is, because these two things are the same. So if we wanted to include this, we can put it over here if we really wanted to. Okay, and that's how you do pretty much all parenthetical in-text citations. Okay, but what I'm going to show you next is how to do this now if I'm going to make them, and if I'm going to make this a narrative citation. Okay, so I'm going to make Stein and Swan the subjects of the sentence, and from a practical standpoint and a writing mechanics standpoint, this is lots of times a very good idea, because it makes the authors the subject of the sentence, and then it makes the verb an active verb. So you can say that Stein and Swan, and here I'm going to show you where this situation changes. It's no longer an ampersand, it's AND. So if it's part of the narrative, then you have to switch out the ampersand, the symbol, with the word and, okay? And here we put the date in parentheses, immediately following the author's names. Okay, so this is mistake number one that I see often, is that the date doesn't follow the author's names. Maybe it's at the end of the sentence. Maybe it's this at the end of the sentence. So it's this, no date, and then the parenthetical citation afterward. That's a bit redundant. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is this if you want to make them part of a narrative in-text citation. Okay, so here I'm going to put in a verb, an active verb, studied the MBTI. Okay, MBTI theory. Okay, ... because I'm not going to finish this sentence. I'm just going to keep it in. Now, at the end of this sentence, I do not need to put in a parenthetical citation, because this suffices. This Stein and Swan 2019 suffices for that. Okay. Now, the next one that I want to show you is 3 or more authors. Okay. And I'm doing 3 or more authors because this is one of the best changes from the 6th to 7th edition. And it has to do with however many authors, 3 or more. There was a time when for first mentions you had to say all of the authors in text for 3, 4, or 5 authors. So up to 5 authors, you had, the first time you mentioned them in text, you had to put them all in the text. Now you don't have to do that. Every mention of 3 or more authors on any citation is always going to use the et al. Abbreviation. Okay, and so here I'm going to use another study of mine that came out in 2018. So I'm going to use et al. Okay, this is going to be parenthetical. I forgot the open parenthesis here. Swan et al. 2018. I think it was 2018. I don't remember. And then there's the parenthetical. Okay, and that's any mention of Swan et al. Now I want to explain what et al. is. Et al. is Latin. Okay, so I'm going to break it down in here. So et al. They capitalized it, but that's fine. So et al. is an abbreviation. Okay, and it's an abbreviation for et al. Et alis, which is and everyone. It's Latin for and everyone. Okay, and so if we break this down further, et equals and sorry about that, and alis equals everyone. Okay, so et al. Or et alis means and everyone, but we use the abbreviation et al. Because we don't need to write et alis every single time. Et alis, et alis, et alis, and so alis was abbreviated to al. So the important thing here is that you recognize that there is no comma after my last name. Okay, there is no comma in this space, so it's first author, et, and et is et is its own word in Latin, and so there's no period after et. Okay, it is its own word, followed by the abbreviation of alis, which comes with the period. Okay, so al period, and you can see that it's written like that here. Et space or et space al period. Okay, immediately after any mention of that first author's last name. Then I put in a comma, just like I would for a single author or a double author, and I plop in the date right after that. Okay, so that would be an in-text or a parenthetical citation in text. I can also do or here, where I would say Swan et al. Period, if I wanted to make this a narrative citation. And then I close. So there's the Swan et al. Again, et is and. Al is short for alis. Okay, and so et alis. But I don't need the L, E, S, the second L, the E, and the S. So I abbreviate that with the period. And then I put the date like I would in this situation that I have up here. Okay, and so this is for 3 or more authors. I want to make that abundantly clear. Okay, 3 or more authors, because this is one of the more fantastic changes that the 7th edition of the APA style manual made, and it's wonderful because it clears up a ton of space that you wouldn't otherwise have needed for other authors. Now, of course, those other authors aren't represented in text anymore, but they're at least in the reference section, so to speak. Okay, and I'll say studied, or I could do conducted ... Okay, because that would be the narrative citation. So it's either this essentially is the last name portion of the citation in text, okay? And you can see that it represents this without the comma. So you're going to use the comma in the parenthetical citation. You're not going to have any comma for a narrative citation, okay? So that's 3 or more, and that's essentially all we need to do, okay? That's all we need to discuss with citations. They are so much easier these days than they used to be, so on and so forth. And so now we can talk about, I can probably add some spaces here, we can talk about how this then translates to references, or at least how we then how we now do references, I think is what I want to say. Okay. So references. Let me go ahead and do my Stein and Swan. I'm not going to use the full title, and I'm not going to use the full journal that was in, because this is all off the top of my head, because I'm just doing this on the fly, because I wanted to make the tutorial. So one thing that is important for references these days is, one, that the word references is centered and bold on a new page. So using page breaks, okay? Using page breaks. So references is bold and centered. And then the other important formatting aspect for the references page is the hanging indent. And how you change a hanging indent, the easiest way to do it is to make sure that you can view your rulers. So you go to View, and you make sure that the ruler box is checked. Okay, I'm going to go back to home. And we are viewing the ruler here, right? And so we have these indent toggles is what I'll call them. And so you can see that it's slightly indented from the edge of the page. This is the edge of the page, or sorry, the edge of the margin, I should say. This is the edge of the page, obviously. And then we have a right toggle over here for the right indentation. But we're obviously talking about the left indentation. And so if you want to do a hanging indent, which I'm going to actually get rid of this tabbed indent because I want to show you what a hanging indent should actually look like. And so we have our toggle. And generally speaking, when you do a paragraph indent, you're moving this top toggle. So this is the first line toggle. This is the first line indent. And so typically that's the indent that you would see for paragraphs. So the first line of a paragraph is indented half an inch on a typical 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and you basically have this. You have an inch margin, and then you have this inch marker here, and so that thicker one would be an inch tab for first line indent. But we need to do a hanging indent. Okay. So we actually have to get the pointer on the bottom toggle, and what it's going to do is it's going to move the bottom toggle and then the full indent toggle, okay, and or slider. And so then we take that to a half an inch, and so you can see that it did not move the cursor at all. The cursor is still at the margin, okay, at the left margin. And hanging indents is the first line is flush left. Every line that comes after it will then be a half an inch indented. And so that's a hanging indent, and that's an important indent. And that's how you format the references page. That's how you format the references page, okay? And this is crucial. You don't want to use enters and tabs. Enters and tabs is just going to get super messy. References will be formatted one way and then not the other way. This way you can keep your references all looking the same. All looking the same. And only the hanging indent carries over wrapping text. Okay, so the next time you hit enter, which I'll show you after I'm done writing the first reference, it'll be a flush left one as well. And so that's for that first, the first letter of the last name, because that has to be alphabetized, right? And so let me go ahead and do Stein R. I'm just going to do first initials. And then this is a 2-author paper. And generally speaking, when you do a series of 2 items, you don't need commas, because commas are generally saved for series of 3 or more in, normal punctuation mechanics. But for references, even if you only have 2 authors, you still need to put that comma before the ampersand, okay? And so the first author is Randy, so Stein R, and then followed by the comma and then ampersand for and, right? And then I'm just going to do, I could do my actual thing, which is Swan AB. Okay, so for last name, comma, first initial, period, space, second initial. You can see here that there is a space in between the period and the next letter and the next initial. Don't try to cram in initials without spaces. The spaces act as some visual clarity for the reader, right? So just not trying to ram everything together. It's like you were trying to say a sentence without any spaces between the words. So put a space in between your abbreviations and initializations. Okay. The next thing that comes is the date. So this was 2019. Okay. And then we do a period. Okay. 2019, then a period. And then we have the title of the paper, the MB MBTI kind of sucks. That's essentially what our paper says. So that's the title that I'm going to work with in this tutorial. So that's the title. And you can see one important thing, okay? And that is it is written in sentence case, okay? And I can show you a couple of other cases that you can do in Word. So if you are on a PC or Windows PC, you can hit Shift F3 and it will cycle through a couple of, I think, 3 different case styles that Word has programmed. If you are on a Mac, then you will need to hit the function button before you hit Shift F3, so it actually recognizes that you want the function button and not the normal action of F3, which on my keyboard is the window tile mode. So I need to hit function so it does the F3 as opposed to window tiling. So I'm going to hit function, Shift F3, and you can see when I hit it once, it will do all caps. Hit it again, and it will get rid of all of my caps. And then if I hit it again, it will do title case. And then I think that's all it can do. Yeah, it's 3 modes. So all caps, no caps, title case. So title case, generally speaking, as you can see here, capitalizes the first letter of all of the words. But then, of course, title case in practice does not have certain words that are capitalized, like of. Of would always be always lowercase, right? So, but then, of course, this is not sentence case. Sentence case is you capitalize the first letter of the first word of the sentence, and then everything else is lowercase, unless it is a proper noun or an acronym. So I capitalize MBTI because it is an acronym. Of course, I'd probably likely say Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, but for purposes of this, I wanted to show the acronym. And then the only other situation that you would then restart title case is after a punctuation within the title. So a colon, as I put here, a question mark, an exclamation point. Generally speaking, not a period. I'm sure they exist. I don't see them very often. So generally speaking, what you see mostly is colons, which would be a title, then subtitle, or a question mark that is, so a question in the title that is then answered in the title. And then an exclamation point. Sometimes you see like, incroyable, I found the secret to longevity, or something like that. And so here I'm going to add in a colon. So I'm going to add in the MBTI kind of sucks, our discussion. Okay? So this would be a very bad title, but it at least illustrates what a title should look like. Our discussion in sentence case. So if you ever see a comment by an editor that says this should be in sentence case, then you know what that means, right? It's just like writing out a sentence, okay, as opposed to title case, which your title should be written in, right? There's a fancy title case for you for this document, right? So that's the title. It ends with a period. It ends with a period in the reference, and then comes the journal. Okay, so the journal of the journal of social and personality. Wow, typing today. Whoop. Personality compass. It's something related to that. And then I'm going to do a comma. We're going to make a change to the font in just a second, but Journal of Social and Personality Compass, and then comma, and then I'm going to put the volume number, which I'm just going to come out with a volume number, 45. And then if there are different issues throughout the year, so if there are multiple issues throughout the year, you want to put the issue numbers in parentheses with no space next to the volume number. So it's volume, then issue in parentheses, no space, followed by the page numbers. And sometimes what you'll want to actually make is an N dash. Okay, so another way to make an N dash is by using a hyphen and then spacing out. That's one way that I did it. Is I made the put a space, hyphen, space, and then I put a space after my next character, and then I removed all of those spaces. There are other ways to do N dashes. You can enter in an N dash as a special character through insert. You can use the alt codes for N dashes and M dashes on your keyboard. Alt codes generally work the best on PCs, but then if you're on a Mac, then there might be a shorter cut for that. But page numbers are separated, generally speaking, by N dashes and not simple hyphens. And also not M dashes. That's a bit too big. Okay? That's a bit too big. M dashes are created by two hyphens. Okay? That's an M dash. This is an N dash. Okay? And then to end, you just hit the period on that one. So that's basically the information that was needed by journals and reference lists for the longest time. But since the dawn of the internet and the permanent storage of electronic copies of things, a new identifier was added. And in the 7th edition, this got a much needed and much easier upgrade, because most journals now are electronic, that people can access on the web, and you could download them as interactive PDF files where links are live. If you wanted to click on a link, it will open up a web page. And so one of the ways that this has been handled is by just allowing those links to live in the reference. And the links that I'm referring to are DOIs. Okay, so previous to the 7th edition, you used to write DOI, and DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier. It's essentially a permalink, a permanent link to a publication, an article, a journal, a book chapter. You can get DOIs for presentations, data these days. So I mean, you could get any DOI essentially related to any aspect of research, and that DOI will live on forever because there's an organization that tracks these DOIs and keeps everything all squared away. So they are permanently findable at those locations, regardless of what happens on the internet and companies changing hands with their databases, so on and so forth. So DOIs used to be the 6th edition and prior, the 5th edition I think as well. The 4th edition is prior my time in APA style, so I'm not entirely sure if DOIs ever even existed in the 4th edition. So you ended up in the 6th and 5th, you ended up having to write the DOI afterwards. And I've come across it written as all capitals. I mean, it technically is an acronym. But then I've also had seen it written as just a lowercase DOI. So DOI is lowercase. And then you just put the fancy link or whatever it was. This is obviously has no reflection on what DOIs actually look like, but because usually it has a 10, and I put a 10 in there. There's a 10 somewhere in there. Then there's some information about the journal and potentially information surrounding the volume and issue number, right? So this is what you used to do. This is no longer the situation, right? So this is 6th and prior, right? So this is 6th edition and prior. We don't want that. Okay, we don't want that. We actually, all we want to do is make it easier for people to jump to any sort of reference. So if it exists, and there is a big push to get even older stuff DOIs, get them scanned from their paper copies, get them scanned into an electronic form and give them a DOI. So older stuff may not have DOIs, but newer stuff definitely has DOIs. And all you have to do is put in HTTP oops, there's my S, colon, / DOI, yeah, DOI, DOI.org, and then slash your went a little bit too hard on that one. Let me do this. Let me do 10 and then oops. And there you go. It's a link. And my computer, my Word, thinks it's a link. And so when you hit space, it creates a link. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead and let it create a link. I know sometimes it looks odd that there is now a blue colored set of text in your fully black font, but I wouldn't worry about that too much. The main thing you need is the DOI, the up to the I would say, I guess, the third / or the first / after the URL, which is doi.org. Okay, go ahead and go here and undo hyperlink, right? So I can highlight it. So what you need is this, okay? The HTTPS colon / DOI.org / and then the DOI and whatever that the DOI is. Now the great news is you don't actually have to type HTTPS colon / every single time, because generally speaking, any newer in the last 20 plus years, maybe 30 years, the DOIs that came with a journal article will already have the full link for you. All you have to do is copy and paste. All you have to do is copy and paste this whole thing from the journal article or from the web page that you grabbed the article from, the journal article from. Like if that was a Google Scholar search, a database search like through EBSCOhost or ProQuest, these databases that'll get you to like something like Psych Articles or Psych Info. I am a psychologist, so those are generally speaking what I see the most. Okay, and so all you have to do is highlight and copy and paste. Okay, and there is no period after that, and that's it. This is a full citation, except we need to make a small adjustment to the journal title, which is the name of the journal, and the volume. Those get italicized, and so I went ahead and did Command I. You could also go up to the button and hit that, and so that is what gets italicized. The issue number does not get italicized. Okay? So here we have a full citation, or reference, I should say. A full reference. And once I hit enter from here, you'll see that now I am back to flush left with my hanging indent. My hanging indent basically says, oh, look, there's that ½ inch space. And then I have stuff to write here for the next one, and like I said, this gets put into alphabetical order. You can use a citation manager to help you do this, but if you don't modify some of the metadata extracted from references, that your Citation Manager grabs, then it may not come out looking like as crisp and clean as this. Lots of times I see the metadata extracts all caps because the title is actually written in all caps, because that's the style that the journal goes for, and that's fine. They can do that, but the Citation Manager is going to extract that caps as well. And if you plug in the citation into your Word document, it's going to show an all caps version of the title, since you didn't make the change in your Citation Manager. So you actually have to go through and edit the citations in your manager in order for them to look appropriate for the Word document. Okay, so that is what citations and references look like as far as the 2020 version of APA Style 7th edition. Whenever they come out with the 8th edition, I'll make a new one of these. We'll see. But thanks for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please leave those down below, or catch me on Twitter, or email me at my college address, aswan@eureka.edu. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.